Rolando Castro Cordova, Vice Minister of Energy from Costa Rica, thank you so much for joining us.
It is my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Fantastic. Thanks again. What are the key challenges that you are facing there in Costa Rica when it comes to the energy transition?
Well, Costa Rica has an electricity grid that is almost 100% based on renewable energy. So this is might seem like the job is done, but this is not a goal in its own. Still, we have a high dependency on fossil fuels, mainly for transportation and for industrial uses. So this is why we launched a decarbonization plan in 2019 in order to have a decarbonized economy by 2050. So we are working hard to electrify our transportation and our industry by taking advantage of our matrix. It also will make us energy independent and reduce the import of fossil fuels. But I think it's important to comment that when you have a renewable grid, you also face new challenges. For instance, climate change is a big challenge for us because our grid is based mostly on hydropower, so it is very vulnerable to climate change. So we must continue diversifying our grid with more renewables. Also, competitivity is a big challenge because we need to have more competitive tariffs in order to compete with fossil fuel and compete in the regional market that we belong to in Central America. So we need to optimize our electricity system and be more efficient. And finally, I think it's important to note that internationally, there's a lot of funds to finance energy transition, but mainly to help countries to go more into renewables. But for the countries that are already there is not much funding to increase the demand of electricity and help them, work on the energy transition on the demand side. So I think this is something that we need to put on the table and discuss in important fora like this.
And I'm wondering, in that vein, and also perhaps more broadly, to what extent you have seen the global coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, either accelerating or decelerating the energy transition worldwide, and also, that conversation that you're talking about with regard to, renewables and the way the approach to essentially incentivizing.
I think it's a very important topic. We must say that COVID-19 is temporary, but climate change is here to stay. So in times of crisis, there is always a temptation to take shortcuts, but I think the energy transition should not be accelerated. We need to think about a biggest threat, and it's climate change. So, for instance, we live in a very vulnerable area in the world, probably the most vulnerable area to climate change. So a hurricane can destroy a hydropower plant or other infrastructure that a country has to fulfill with the SDGs. So this is why we need to continue with these commitments that we took in the Paris Agreement and be more ambitious even to accomplish the world targets. So we think the economic recovery post-COVID-19 should be green. And we need to continue, working and pushing this energy transition worldwide, because this is something that is not only good for the economies, but it's also good for the planet and for the people.
Vice Minister of Energy from Costa Rica, Rolando Castro Cordova, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.